Captain Ray. Alright, the first one to chug theirs all the way to the bottom wins. Catherine has a bit of a handicap because she doesn't like it as much, as you can see.
I think it would be some kind of crime not to start this video with a game of drinking.
I don't like it at all.
She doesn't like it at all. And I'm still gonna win, probably.
And he likes it.
And I like it. So.
Alright, here we go.
Alright, ready? 3, 2, 1.
So we'll get back to that a little bit later. Guess who wins?
Marley.
At the end of my study at UL, my family came to visit and help me explore Ireland. My brother, who is also a student at UL, my mother, who is not, and my friend Catherine, who used to be. Our first and possibly most important stop was at the Guinness factory in Ireland. Unfortunately, not everybody is so into Guinness, such as James here. Yuck. But lucky for him, there's lighter beers, such as Budweiser.
Just break my glass.
But let's explore some parts of Ireland that don't involve alcohol. The first thing you're gonna need is one of these. Public transportation is great, inner city, but if you're gonna actually explore, you really need your own mode of transportation. Just be prepared for some interesting roadblocks.
They're cute.
Also, be prepared for some serious wrong side of the road driving. Get one of these as well. Yes, it's a GPS, and yes, you can get maps of Ireland on them. If it weren't for our GPS, we would probably all still be lost somewhere in the countryside. The first place we visited is the Burren in County Clare on the west coast of Ireland. The entire landmass is covered by these limestone formations you see here, and are the end result of thousands of years of receding water masses. Our first stop in the Burren was the Cliffs of Moher, seen here. The cliffs rise an average of 400 feet above sea level, right around Hag's Head, seen here, and up to almost 700 feet at O'Brien's Tower on the opposite side. The cliffs are in the finals for the new 7 Wonders of the World, and will be announced in 2010. Hopefully they'll make it. As you make your way up, you'll see a number of street performers, some of which are actually pretty good, all playing traditional Irish music, of course. O'Brien's Tower was built in the 1800s by Sir Cornelius O'Brien and is open to tourism. According to legend, he built it to attract female visitors and give them a spectacular view of the Aran Islands, seen here. During the British invasion of Ireland, the Aran Islands were deemed unnecessary and inaccessible, and therefore the culture has remained almost authentically Irish. The people there speak almost nothing but Irish. And then there's a sign here for anyone who's come to the cliffs for something other than sightseeing. Our next stop was at the Alwee Caves, close by, still in the Burren, about 40 minutes away from the Cliffs of Moher. The caves extend more than a kilometer underneath the limestone plateaus of the Burren, but is only accessible for about 300 meters. Still, it was pretty impressive. The story behind the cave's discovery is kind of funny. Apparently, a farmer back in the 1940s was chasing his dog, who in turn was chasing a rabbit, and happened upon the caves. Still, it took another 40 years before anybody thoroughly explored the caves, and still today it has only been explored by a couple of people due to its largely inaccessible length. Some of which requires you to swim or dive, sometimes with equipment, through passages that are hardly larger than your body. A nice little bonus included in the ticket price of seeing the caves was a bird sanctuary located at the base of the plateau in which the caves were formed. The sanctuary was actually a bit more fun than the caves themselves, largely due to the antics of this little guy. His name is Loon, and he's been trained to pick up garbage left by visitors by this man, an Australian no doubt. For whatever reason, Loon enjoyed picking up a bunch of rocks and depositing them in little piles where he could later retrieve them, although I'm not really sure why. He also had a thing for tissue. My brother got yelled at for giving it to him because he shredded it up, but oh well. As I said before, the Burren consists of huge lengths of limestone plains, as you can see here, and one of the best parts of driving through it is to just get out wherever and check it out. We get out here at a convenient little tourist location which happened to have a burial center. Although they're supposed to be pretty common, we only saw one of these. Apparently, and according to the signs along the path, Many people were buried here, up to 34 if I remember correctly. The official name of the burial chamber is a dolmen, although it was mostly referred to just as a burial site. A few days after we visited the burn, we set off for County Kerry, located south of County Clare, where I have been living. The journey took almost 2 hours and included a ferry ride across a stretch of water. Our destination was the Killarney National Park, located just next to the town of Killarney. Here you can see the mountains that surround the park. We're still quite a ways off though, they get a bit more impressive. Our first stop before actually entering the park was at this random cathedral, known as St. Mary's, actually inside Killarney. Some of the best times we had were at random stops, so I figured I'd include this. Although this is not by far one of the oldest cathedrals in Ireland, it was built in 1855, I thought I would include it just as an example of the great architecture found in cathedrals all over this country. I'm not really one for architecture, but just entering these buildings gives you such a sense of space and time that it's hard not to be moved. And of course, since we were visiting, we made a donation and lit a candle. Our arrival at the park entrance was met by an old man with a horse named Charlie. He offered to give us a tour of the park for a small fee, and of course we accepted. And it was probably one of the best decisions we made. He took us all over the park and gave us a quick tour of everything he could think of, including this abbey. Known as the Muckross Abbey, this is a true piece of architectural history. It was built all the way back in the 1400s and is currently under reconstruction, as you can see by some of the plaster walls and scaffolding. Further along, we saw another historical gem, the Ross Castle, built in the late 1400s. There are castles like this all over Ireland, many of which are pretty well preserved. From there, our tour guide brought us around to Muckross House and gave us a tour of the surrounding area, including the mountains, seen here. Everything you see here, including the house, the 3 mountains that surround it, and the lake in between, was owned by Henry and Mary Herbert in the 1800s. The mansion has 65 rooms and was visited in 1861 by Queen Victoria. After some financial difficulties, the entire estate, including the mountains, lake, and mansion, was given over to the government and turned into the national park it is today. Our last stop before turning around and heading back to the entrance was Torque Waterfall, located around the base of Torque Mountain, which is one of the several mountains owned by the Herberts and eventually part of the Killarney National Park. The trail will actually bring you to the top of the mountain, but we were all a little tired and decided to save it for another day. Or never. One last thing that you have to see in Ireland, the Guinness factory. So let's get back to before.
Oh snap!
Blue chugs passes.